I'd request everybody at the rear side of the hall to kindly settle down. We are about to begin today's event. And I'd request everybody once again to please put your phones on the silent mode. I'd request everybody to kindly settle down as our guests are about to arrive. A very warm welcome to all, to the future of learning, an international design collaborative brought to you by Anant National University in partnership with the University of Pennsylvania's Graduate School of Education. I would like to welcome our chief guest for today, Honorable Minister of Education, Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Government of India, Shri Dharmendra Pradhan ji, for gracing the occasion. I also take the privilege to welcome our guest of honor for today, Dr. Mamidala Jagadesh Kumar, the chairman of the University Grants Commission. Dr. Kumar is an academician, administrator, and coveted author who became the chairman of the University Grants Commission in February 2022. I also take the privilege of welcoming our president, Mr. Ajay Piramal, for being present with us here today. Mr. Piramal is one of India's leading industrialists and philanthropists and the chairman of the Piramal Group. I welcome you, sir. I would also like to welcome Dr. Pramad Sinha, the founding provost of Anant National University. Dr. Sinha is an entrepreneur, institution builder, and philanthropist. He was the founding dean of the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, and also the founder of Harappa Education 9.9 Group, Ashoka University, Vedika Scholars Program for Women, and the Naropa Fellowship Program. I also take the privilege of welcoming Dr. Peter Eckel, the Director of Leadership Programs at the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Eckel is an expert on higher education management governance. Alongside, he develops and delivers highly innovative capacity building programs and projects, including consulting efforts to strengthen and advance higher education. I welcome you, Dr. Eckel. And lastly, I would like to welcome our provost, Dr. Anunay Chaube. Dr. Chaube is a well-known artist and academic in the field of literature and art history. He has a wide administrative expertise in the education space and has contributed to several institution building exercises in both India and abroad. At Anant U, apart from leading the administrative chair, Dr. Chaube is also the director of the coveted Anant Fellowship Program. I welcome you, sir. I would now like to introduce Dr. Raghu Krishnamurthy, Senior Fellow and Director, Chief Learning Officer of the doctoral program at the University of Pennsylvania. I would request Dr. Raghu to kindly come forward and introduce our delegates of the Future of Learning Collaborative to our honorable dignitaries.
आदरणीय मंत्री महोदय, धर्मेंद्र प्रधान जी, यूजीसी चेयरमैन जी, श्री जगदीश कुमार जी, श्री अजय पिरमल जी, श्री प्रमोद सिन्हा जी, दो शब्द हिंदी में बोलने का जो अवसर मुझे मिला है, टूटा फूटा क्यों ना हो, उसके लिए मैं मेरे क्या जो आनंद आती है अपने राष्ट्रभाषा में बोलने की, उसका कुछ और अलग ही महसूस होता हूँ. Sorry about that. My Hindi is exceptionally bad, and I try to say I'm taking the pleasure of welcoming all of you in Hindi. Having said that, it's my privilege and honor to welcome everybody, especially the dignitaries and the guests here. Sir, the Future of Learning Collaborative is a unique, groundbreaking effort sponsored by Anant University in partnership with UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, to think about how we are going to evolve in the future. As we have just come out of the pandemic, it's obvious that we are at a pivotal moment in the history of education. One of my colleagues, Mr. Hemi Banfi, talks about future of education being future of hope. And we want now, what if we were to rethink education? For that purpose, today we have a set of 27 educators from across the world, across the globe, from different parts of the world who are going to be here deliberating on this over the next 3 days. I would like all of them to rise and all of you to give them a warm round of applause so that we can welcome them properly. So all I can tell you is that this group of educators have been deliberating about this event over the last 3-4 months. We have people from Africa, we have people from Kazakhstan, we have people from Australia, Vietnam, of course the United States and Europe, and Latin America too. So I'm not going to go through the introduction of every one of them. Their bios are available. What I would like to say is this group of dedicated professionals are here, inspired by the work that Anant University has done to take forward with a sense of mission about what the future of education could look like, future of learning could look like. And I would like all of you to join and make sure that this event is very successful. With that, with your request for your blessings, if you can come to the dais and light the lamp, we would welcome you here. Thank you so much.
To commemorate today's event, I would like to invite all our dignitaries on the stage for the lamp lighting ceremony. I'd like to invite our chief guest for today, Honorable Minister Shri Dharmendra Pradhan ji, our guest of honor, Mr. Jagadesh Kumar, President, Mr. Ajay Piramal, Dr. Pramod Sinha, Dr. Anunay Chaube, and Dr. Peter Eckel. I also invite our final year student, Ms. Serene Saj, to offer our prayers to the goddess Saraswati through a soulful recital.
जनक जननी पद्मराज निज मस्तक पर धारी बंदो मातो सरस्वती बुद्धि बल दे दातारी पूर्ण जगत में व्याप्त तव महिमा अमित अनंत दुष्ट जनों की पाप को मातु तू ही अब हम दू।
Thank you so much, Serene, for filling in this hall with a lot of positivity. I now request our Provost, Dr. Anunay Chaube, to kindly come on the dais to give the opening address.
Well, the last thing I want is to read someone else's speech. Not with me, certainly. So, and I didn't want this to happen anyway. So, good morning, and Honorable Minister of Education, Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Shri Dharmendra Pradhan ji, Chairman of the University Grants Commission, Professor Jagadesh Kumar ji, President of Anant National University, Ajay Piramal ji, Founding Provost, Dr. Pramod Sinha, Senior Fellow Policy Organizations Leadership and Systems Division at Penn GSE and Director of Leadership Programs, Penn Ahead, Dr. Peter Eckel, Chief Information Commissioner of the State of Gujarat, Shri Amrutbhai Patel ji, Chairman of the Board of at Sanskar Dham Trust, Shri Dilip Thakur ji, Shri Durgesh Agarwal ji, delegates, dignitaries, faculty, staff, students and friends from the media. I welcome you all to Anant on this opening day of the 3-day International Design Collaborative on Future of Learning, being organized in partnership with Penn Graduate School of Education. The purpose of the collaborative is to explore the role, purpose, reach, and dissemination of education and learning in context of a world that is changing fast for reasons of climate change, geopolitical conflicts, economic and technical disparities, and to recommend steps to ensure that the future of learning is relevant, equitable, inclusive, solution-oriented, and impactful across contexts globally. The idea for this collaborative was born exactly a year ago in Philadelphia at my meeting at Penn GSE with Professor Alan Ruby, Professor Jenny Zaff, and Professor Zachary Herman. I thank them for their inspiration and hope that this collaborative would fulfill the big task that it is entrusted with. For the purpose of these deliberations, we have 27 delegates from around the world with impeccable and inspiring credentials in the field of education. I would now request Shri Ajay Piramal ji, President of Anant National University, an industrialist, a social change maker, and a nation builder with a global outlook, to felicitate the Honorable Minister of Education, our chief guest today, Shri Dharmendra Pradhan ji, with a stole woven by our students on heritage looms and a tricky book created by our craftsmen at our maker space. And soon, so each one of you would have that tricky book and you'll find out what's so tricky about it. I would now invite Dr. Pramod Sinha, the founding provost of Anant National University and a serial entrepreneur in the field of education, founder of several path-breaking educational institutions in the country, to felicitate our guest of honor today, Professor Jagadesh Kumar, the chairman of the University Grants Commission, with a stole and the same memento, the tricky book. Nishita? I would now invite Shri Ajay Piramal ji to come here and deliver his welcome address on the ceremony.
I'll do that. Shri Dharmendra Pradhan, the Minister for Education, Skill Development and Entrepreneurship of the Government of India, Professor Jagadish Kumar, the Chairman of the University Grants Commission, Mr. Peter Eckel from UPenn, Dr. Pramod Sinha, our founder, provost, and now member of the board, all the visiting delegates, our provost, Professor Anunay Chaube, members on the board of management of Anant U, faculty and students. It is indeed a great moment for us today that our Honorable Minister, Shri Dharmendra Pradhan, has come. We feel honored and privileged, sir, by your presence here today. I would also welcome Professor Jagadish Kumar, our chairman of the UGC. Shri Dharmendra ji, your presence here today as a leader in the vanguard of transformative changes in the field of education in our country is truly inspirational. This design collaborative, hosted by Anant University in collaboration with UPenn Graduate School of Education, seeks to explore different dimensions of education and learning across different contexts in the world through these challenging times and into the future. Truly, if we see today, we are passing through a tornado of change. And the new education policy, which the government had introduced after several years in 2020, is recognizing some of it. We have seen the change which nobody had expected in the last few years. What with the pandemic, what with the crisis of Ukraine and Russia, what with all the new technology developments, Chat GPT, things are very, very different. And if you see, it's changing the way we live in the world. Look at the impact of technology, social media, and we know the impact it has on students particularly. Chat GPT, I don't know, if it was in my days, I would have never studied, I guess. Whether it is the whole thing of Internet of Things, AI, machine learning, big data, 5G, 6G, I mean, there is constant change. That's the only thing that is, change is only constant. And how do we react to this change? How do we live in a world which is constantly changing is what we need to really get ready for today. Conferences like this, when we talk about future of learning, is how do we make ourselves future ready? What are the skills that we need to do? How do we reinvent ourselves? Because frankly, I see my grandchildren and they know more about most subjects than I do. Or if they don't know, they'll get the answer the next few minutes. So that's another new development. So in a situation like this, probably something that does not change, that cannot be digitized or automated, actually is the human self. And therefore, all the more importance for education. How do we train ourselves to be better human beings? How do we get creativity, agility, and compassion, the soft skills that are needed for the social, emotional, and ethical learning is what we all need to do in schools. And how do you have the resilience to absorb this change? And finally, how do we have the learning ability to keep learning new things? I mean, when I saw Chat GPT, I just couldn't believe what we're going through, and this is just in a few months. So that's the big change that is happening, and we all need to get ready for that. I'm very glad that we have amongst us 27 delegates from 13 countries and 5 continents, educationists, academicians, education administrators, innovators, designers, and policymakers, investors, and social impact makers to examine a range of challenges that we face today and for this conference for the next 3 days. My welcome to all of you, to Anant and to India, for the purpose of this collaboration. We are looking forward to this collaborative to bring its collective experience, insights, and innovative design thinking in identifying the new challenges in the field of education and learning, and to offer plausible solutions to ensure an impactful, equitable, and inclusive learning for all across contexts in the present and in the future. So welcome, and look forward to you having very useful discussions and to the white paper that you will produce so that we can start that implementation. Thank you.
How I wish I had read that speech. So was that ChatGPT? I'm sure it wasn't, because I tried it twice this morning, and I thought, said both of them fell woefully short. No, Raghu is an expert, he keeps showing it off at each of our meetings. I would like to invite Professor Peter Eckel now to give an introduction about the collaborative and the focus that it has. Peter.
Good morning. Honored guests, our hosts from Anant National University. Nunaya asked me to start with the focus of our institution, of this collaborative, which is sitting in the audience. Could I ask all the students to please stand up? That is the focus of this collaborative. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your time and your interest and your efforts. Provost Chaubey asked me to say a few words to help frame our time together. I've selected just 18 of them. 3 of them you would expect, and I'm going to ask you to reflect as I say each word. Pause. What does that mean in the context of this conversation? The 3 expected ones: learning, future, collaboration. But I think there are other words that help us focus our conversations over the next few days. And again, I ask you to reflect upon what each of these words means to you in this context of conversation. Anticipated, unknown, excited, uncertain, listen, ask, feel, question, ponder, puzzle, pause, engage, wonder, explore, and welcome.
That sounded almost like an imagist poem, by William Carlos Williams But that was, I think, fantastically bulleted. And as you said, so the 3 principles: future, learning, collaboration. So thank you, Peter, for that. I would now request the chief guest on the occasion, Honorable Minister of Education of India, Shri Dharmendra Pradhan ji, to come here and deliver the keynote address. Sir.
Good morning to all. Sri Ajay Piramal, President, Anant National University. Dr. Peter Ekel, Director of Leadership Program, University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Jagadesh Kumar, Chairman, UGC. Dr. Pramath Raj Sinha, Founding Provost, Anant National University. Dr. Anune Chobe, Provost, Anant National University. Delegates from 13 countries. Delegates from different states of India. My dear students, faculty, promoter of this university, dignitaries, friends from the media. I am delighted to be here at this international conference on a very important topic, future of learning. Friends, my fast learning, I am a socio-political activist. We all are fond of microphones. When we got opportunity to give a speech, we can compete with a professor. Professor's time span is 45 minutes. Our time span is minimum 1 hour 45 minutes. Today, but I am not going to engage all of you in that much of time. When I'm talking about future of learning, my today's learning are so many, but fast learning is Professor Ekel's speech model. Very focused, bullet pointed, and nothing here and there. I borrowed this piece of paper from him. When I'm thinking why he is, what kind of professor he is. He's a professor of leadership. This is his past teaching of leadership. You must have to focus, you must have to be very deep into your subject. Friends, so we all are here, as I said, very important collaborative conference on a very important subject of the entire human civilization, future of learning. Learning of what? How do we, in the modern world, how do we, from ancient to modern, how do we define the learning process? The entire process is known as knowledge, education, through empowerment. Being in charge of country's education sector, my little understanding of education is the weapon of empowerment, is the breeze of past to future, present to future. And we're talking about future of learning, future of education. When India is presiding over the G20 presidency, we all are here to deliberate on this important subject. When we are in the mid of the Industrial Revolution 4.0, when we have crossed fast 2 decades of 21st century, there is a consensus among the global opinion maker, global policy makers, 21st century is going to be the century of knowledge, century through empowerment of knowledge. Friends, when we are organizing G20 in our country, Prime Minister Modi envisioned to enhance the beneficiary of G20 deliberation. India has created a new forum of Global of South. We invited all the emerging economy. How do we fulfill the aspiration of all those countries? India is the custodian of their interest also. This G20 presidency will also deliberate the aspiration of those segments of society. And today, I am here in an important academic institution whose foundation is holistic. In the modern time, in the industrial revolutionary phase, in the era of different economic phase, how do we define design thinking? What is the meaning of design thinking? And rightly this institution has summarized that design thinking in its own way, localized that, contextualized that in own way, primarily in the India-centric way, Indic-centric way, empathy, define the problem, ideate the problem, create a prototype and test in the society. How do you do that? Ananta has envisioned all this process through mind, heart and hand. Today, what is the challenge in education? When I am interacting to few young students, my query was, why you came to this institution? This is a very young institution. This institution is not known in the national level today. Why you came here? The answer give me inspiration. One of the young girl students said, I am here because I thought I can explore my idea, experiment my idea, experiment my feeling for the social development. Friends, this is the foundation of design thinking. In the era of industrialization, in the era of materialistic life, in the era of cutthroat competition, we forgot the basic essence of knowledge, basic essence of empowerment. Why we are doing all such things? Why we must have education? Why we must have learning process? Why we must have empowerment? For us or for society? For us or society or for planet? For humanity? For all the living creature? In our Indian way of thinking, in the Indic way of thinking, we have a concept concept of samagra, holistic. We worship water. We have appreciation about our air. We have appreciation about our biodiversity. We have appreciation from ant to God. Why? In Indian way of life, we think every creature, every species, every material has its own relevance. There is a purpose. There is a plan. If we'll segment all these things in a compartmental way, we may grow at a level, we may achieve certain things. After some time, crisis will come. The entire world is little bit worried about climate, worried about sustainability, worried about natural resource. How do we consume? How do we behave? How do we understand the entire universe? If we will have a holistic thinking, if we have a thinking of entire value chain, then only our empowerment will be the purpose of well-being of humankind, human civilization. When we go back to our previous, our past journey, we analyze what is Indian way of life. In Indian way of life, we never, from our education, even our early childhood days, up to our last breath of a human being, there was a design, there is a design, there is a process. We never segmented that in compartments. But due to some thinking at one point of time in the civilizational journey, we have segmented our thought process. Today, the design thinking is giving opportunity to reinvent that old Indic thought process, the samagra process, the holistic process. And coincidentally, when I am talking, when we are discussing this point, when India is going to implement National Education Policy 2020, if in few words I can explain you what is NEP 2020, for me, NEP is not only a brochure of 60 pages. National Education Policy envisioned by Prime Minister Modi is a philosophical document for entire human civilization. Because today, India is a role model for the emerging economy of the world. Where we are giving emphasis? We are giving emphasis on language. What is the recommendation of NEP? We all know by the age of 8, 85% of the brain has been developed on a child. That means around standard 2 to 3, the child has already taken its shape. This is the biological development of a human being. For the first time in India, we have started our learning process from age 3. Play school is not an old concept in India, but for the first time in the policy, Government of India is giving importance to the play school. So Bal Batika 1, 2, 3 and Standard 1 and 2. These are the 5 years foundational course, foundational period of the education system NEP has recommended. Play, song, action, storytelling, these are the way of education in our civilization. We are going to give importance to in all these things at the age of 3, 4 and 5. This is the primary condition of design thinking. This is the idea. This is the problem we have defined. We want to create a prototype. We want to product a human production center. We want to create a human production center through our primary education system. Going beyond language, we found our working population is around 500 million in our country. Our literacy level, when we got independence, our literacy level was around 20% according to that population. Today, our literacy population is 80%. That means 20% more are yet to be literate. That number is not small. Around 200 million people are yet to be literate. How do we meet out that target? How to create a productive economy system? How all the citizens will get minimum level of literacy, 100% level of literacy, and the minimum capacity, that means skilling. I am inspired today after visiting this institution. We are reforming our education policy accordingly. With me, our UGC chairman is here. Recently, in higher education vertical, UGC has reformed some of its policy. For the first time in India, we are creating a system of professor of practice. I am happy to see some of the professor of practice in this design university. In the production design, in the sustainable fashion technology design. Friends, this should be the model. And I am happy. Our challenge in India today, in the age group of 15 to 25, in the age group of 15 to 25, 250 million youngsters are there. Our working population, working age group is 15 to 59. In that age group, 500 million citizens are there. If we put together, around 15-20 million people will be overlapped. Because after 10, everybody is not going to higher education vertical. Due to socio-economic compulsion in our country, people are joining workforce. But challenge in front of my country policy maker, how to create saturation in the education and skilling ecosystem. NEP is giving recommendation in that direction. This is the Prime Minister Modi's design thinking on education. Holistic problem analysis. Solution to entire population. Our governance model is saturation model. Trupti. None of the citizen will be deprived from any basic amenities given by state, given by the system. Then only the entire development can come out. In last 75 years in our country, due to various reasons, lot of good work has been done, lot of good thing has been achieved, but lot of things could have been achieved. Now, how do we achieve that? Only through education empowerment, only through holistic thinking, only through create a samagra darshan. I am happy when I am talking about future of learning. NEP is in our hand. Good isolated models are also there. Today more than 1100 university or institutions are working in the higher education field of India. 1.5 million schools are there. More than 50,000 colleges are there in India. But we have to have a paradigm shift. We have to have a transition from our conventional or education practice of last few decades to a new model. But why you have to do that? That is also part of our design thinking. Because in India, we believe entire humanity as a family. Entire humankind is our one family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. One earth, one family, one aspiration. For this, to achieve this thing, we have to create a new pathway create a new learning pedagogy, create a future mapping according to that. I'm happy, I'm delighted. I will expecting this white paper after 3 days deliberation by these global leaders. As a policy in charge, I'm eagerly waiting this white paper to come to us, come to UGC, come to NCRT, come to national board like CBSE. Will implement your recommendation, and every human being has a capacity to create certain things, but purpose has to infuse in his mind or mind. Why you are studying? What is the purpose of your studying? How you will achieve the target? When the purpose of a cause, purpose of a big mission will be infused in a youngster's mind, then he can create wonders. This is the experience we have from our civilization. I congratulate all of you, those who are studying here. I am little bit jealous of all of you, because in my days I could not find an institution like Anant National University. But you all are fortunate to part of this important institution, and I congratulate the international participants, those who are here on the invitation of our university. Your contribution will value, will respect, and will implement that in our policy implementation. And finally, I congratulate Mr. Chobe and an entire team, and Mr. Piramal and the entire team, to create a benchmark in our society. This Anant University, they show me in their presentation, this is one among the DesignX university of our country. But according to my little information, I think this is the university, this is the only DesignX university in our country today. I congratulate all of you. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, sir, for your encouraging and inspiring words, and for the insights that you have shared that would lead all of us here to deliberate better and more effectively, keeping in mind empowerment and comprehensive education, that will offer us all an integrated vision of the world that we live in, and that's a great idea to work with. I would now request Dr. Pramatra Sinha to carry out the next round of the proceedings here, which is a round table discussion with eminent educationists that we have here from different contexts. And I would welcome him here, Pramath, to come and to introduce the notion of this discussion and the participants. Please.
So I'm going to have to throw off some people off stage. So no, Peter is not part of this also. Otherwise we'll run out of chairs. Thank you, Peter. Good afternoon. Is it afternoon yet? Yes, just turned afternoon. Thank you all very much for participating in this session and in this collaborative. I'd like to invite our panelists for this session. First, Dr. Sharon Ravich. Sharon is, and please come up as I call out your name, I'll use the time to just introduce you, is Professor of Practice at the University of Pennsylvania's Graduate School of Education. She has published 8 books spanning leadership, research, and education, and she has 2 master's degrees. Sharon, just, yeah. She has 2 master's degrees from Harvard in Human Development and Psychology and Education, and a doctorate from UPenn itself. May I next invite Dr. Jeff Hayward. Jeff is Professor of Education, Head of Faculty, University of Cambridge. He's also the Associate Director, ESRC Research Center on Skills, Knowledge, and Organizational Performance. Jeff, thank you for being here. May I next invite our very special guest from Africa, Veda Sunasi. I hope that I pronounced that right, Veda. You have a very Indian name, by the way. The CEO of the African Leadership University in Rwanda and the African Leadership University in Mauritius. He has spent over a decade in several roles with the African Leadership Group. Some of you will know that this is one of the most exciting university initiatives in the African continent. And last but not least, Stavros Yanuka. Stavros is the CEO of the World Innovation Summit for Education, WISE. WISE is a global think tank of the Qatar Foundation that is obviously based in Qatar, but they organize several conferences and think it's a reputed think tank, and we expect that he will bring us a perspective from the Middle East. The discussion session is entitled Reimagining Education. We've heard from Shri Pradhan about his views on reimagining education. We haven't really given a chance to Dr. Jagadesh Kumar, our UGC chairman, to talk about his views of reimagining education. Dr. Kumar, if I may request you to please kick off this session with your remarks about how you see education evolving. You have the
Right. Right.
run of the
No, I know the time constraints.
about 10 minutes.
Right. You know, a great philosopher said, if you want to achieve excellence, dream no small dreams. Today I am privileged to be standing in front of an audience who think big. However, achieving excellence cannot be done by catapulting somebody there. It has to start from basics. So I would like to set the context for the discussion that is going to happen. Friends, all of you, I'm sure, will agree that universities or higher educational institutions are primarily social institutions. They cannot be misunderstood as corporations. It is the universities where we impart bits and pieces of this vast human knowledge to our youngsters so that they become creative and innovative. It is only the universities which do public good research driven by curiosity, not financial goals. It is only the universities where young learners can coexist with cutting-edge research so that they are transformed into individuals who will serve the people around them. That is why, friends, it is very, very essential that universities maximize, that they should transform themselves to maximize the social good that they are offering to the people who are educated in those universities. Now let me put before you 3 challenges that we have. If we want to transform our universities into institutions of excellence, there are 3 challenges that stare at us. Number 1, how to make our education, which is based on learning outcomes, how to make our education personalized, and how to make our education, how to impart our education at a mass scale. The days of a university saying that we admit only 2 or 3% of the applicants and therefore we are a great university are over. our concern also has to be on those 97% of the students who are not lucky enough to be part of a good university. That is why today our focus has turned to massivization of our higher education. India has set a goal for itself to increase the GER, gross enrollment ratio, of 50% by 2035. So why do we have to focus on these three parameters which look contradictory? You know, when you provide high quality education on a mass scale, it leads to higher aggregate learning, and that leads to higher aggregate productivity, which in turn builds better economic systems, and that will then lead to higher gross income, per capita income to the individuals. This will then increase the per capita income of the society, which will then help us to invest public funds in educating large number of people. So you see that it is a regenerative cycle. But all this has to be done based on learning outcomes, based on personalized education. We all want to build institutions of excellence. The logic is very simple. If any country wants to become self-reliant, their youngsters had to be educated, they had to be given high quality education. And what is an institution of excellence? Certainly, I do not consider necessarily those institutions which are in the top 100 in the global rankings. In my view, institutions of excellence are those which impart education which is relevant to the local, regional, and national contexts. Institutions of excellence are those which have governance systems which promote openness, which provide freedom to do research in any discipline that they want to pursue. Institutions of excellence are those which strengthen their academic and research ecosystem. Such institutions also have to be at least partially internationalized so that you have students and faculty moving in and out of our institutions from across the globe. Such institutions should also be part of the global knowledge networks so that you are part of the global networks which in turn will make you a great university, a reputed university. Friends, today, if I go back 3 months, on 1st December 2022, India took over the presidency of the G20 countries. And this has happened in a situation where we are seeing global conflicts, we are seeing increasing inequalities, we are seeing failing economic systems. You all heard about the Silicon Valley Bank, how it has created a flutter in the economic systems. But on the other hand, if you look at India, today India is the third largest ecosystem for startup companies. India is poised to become the third largest economic system in the world. India is becoming the manufacturing hub of the world. India is also rated as one of the top countries in terms of the scientific output. There are so many things that are happening, and that's the reason why our Honorable Prime Minister, he wanted to start the G20 presidency by a program called University Connect, where we brought more than 100 universities and thousands of students across the country, and we began our journey of G20 on 1st December 2022. That is the kind of importance we give to the youth who are sitting there. Our youth in India are aspirational. Why do I say so? youth in general, they have certain characteristics. As academicians, we all interact with youth every day, and you observe certain characteristics. And please let me know if you disagree with any one of them. Our young people, they want to be lifelong learners. Our young people want to be creative and innovative. They want to be problem solvers and solution providers. They want to be leaders and part of leading groups. They want to take risks and learn from the failures that emanate from these risks. Most of all, they want to become good human beings. So how do we fulfill these aspirations of our young students across the country? And that is where the National Education Policy 2020 plays a very, very important role. As our Honorable Education Minister has said, it is just not a document of 60 pages, but it is a philosophical path that provides to all of us, not just only in India, but across the world. I'm sure the deliberations that will take place will touch upon some of these points, and I also wish great success for your 3 days workshop that is going to take place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kumar. I think some of the points that you made will be very relevant as we deliberate in our collaborative, particularly the issue of learning outcomes married to personalized learning, and then trying to do that at a massive scale and provide access is indeed the challenge that at least we face quite starkly in India, given where we are in our system. I also echo your, identify with your point about the aspirations of youth as well as the married to learning outcomes. We at Anant have therefore coined this idea that for us the learning outcome is that every student should be a solutionary. And this is a word that we coined very early on, which is to say that it's not just enough to be revolutionary. You have to be revolutionary, but you need to be constructive. And you need to come up with solutions that are contextual, that are recognize the society and the community, and not just come up with theoretical answers. So those resonate very well with the way we are approaching this university. Thank you, sir, for being here. And I'll ask to come back to you and the Honorable Minister for some closing remarks at the end of this panel. All of you have mics, so you're welcome to speak from where you are, or you're welcome to come to the dais. What I thought we would do is have each of you take 5 minutes to share 1 or 2 key ideas that you might have about reimagining education. Jeff, it's okay, may I start with you and ask you to tell us what you think should be an area of focus in reimagining education. I hope your mic is working, why don't you?
So do I. You can hear me? No. It is on. Hello? Try again. Hello? No, that's okay.
They'll just get it working.
Okay. I have got a very loud voice, so I can probably reach the back of the room anyway. It's always scary to go first. I've heard this morning about change, and I want to think about, well, what does change actually mean? What it means for us, or rather not for me because I'm too old to really worry about it, what it means for you is that you are going to live in a world that is full of what I call wicked problems. The nature of wicked problems is that they're ambiguous. And ambiguous problems are ones that you cannot solve using traditional methods of means ends rationality. They're what the great psychologist Gregory Bateson called double binds. And the nature of a double bind is that whatever you do, it's going to be wrong. That's what a double bind actually is. So the challenge for me, and I believe, Minister, this is a holistic model, is how do we help young people to be present in this changing world where they will have to learn what is not yet there. And if you're going to learn what is not yet there, you cannot specify learning outcomes and you cannot specify behavioral competencies. So for me, that's the challenge. And to move forward with that challenge, we have to let go of simplistic talk about learning. And we've all been indoctrinated into this simplistic talk over the last 30 to 40 years. And I just wish to give one example. Moving beyond the naive simplicity of skills talk. Problem solving, for example, is not a generic skill. To be a good problem solver, you have to have very deep levels of domain knowledge. Chess players are brilliant at solving chess problems. That does not mean they are going to make brilliant politicians who are going to solve political problems. So to be good at solving problems, you need to have deep domain knowledge. And as I've walked around this campus this morning, I've observed young people developing deep domain knowledge. The second point I would make is don't overcomplicate things. Young children still need to go to primary school so that they can learn to read and write and do arithmetic. And large language models which underpin generative AI like ChatGPT are not going to change that. You still have to go to school to learn how to do those kinds of things. The challenge is how do we extend that opportunity to all young people, especially in the global south. And that's where technology may actually have a major role to play. And the third thing I'm going to suggest is I'm going to make a bet with you. I bet that in 50 years' time, schools will still exist, teachers will be standing at the front of classrooms, and young people will be sitting in rows listening to teachers. That model is 5,000 years old. I give my first-year undergraduates a picture of the oldest school we know about, which is in ancient Sumeria in modern-day Iraq. And it takes them about 5 minutes to work out that it's a school, because it's just like their school. Now, the great thing about this bet is I can't lose, because either I'm right, which means I win the bet, but if I'm wrong, I won't be here anyway, so I still win the bet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeff. We are in the middle of building multiple 100 square feet of a campus, so that's very reassuring. That sometimes people ask us, why are you making all these buildings? Isn't it all going digital anyway? But I completely agree with you that the Guru Shishya Parampara, which is a very ancient Indian tradition, is not going away anywhere in a hurry. Sharon, may I ask you to go next? And I do want to recognize that we are very grateful to the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm particularly saying this because I'm a graduate of that, but this whole association started with a very early partnership with UPenn when we were a young institution, and we didn't really, nobody knew us. The School of Design and the School of Engineering agreed to partner with us. In fact, our master's degree in product design is inspired by that. And now it's great that the Graduate School of Education is also involved with Anant. But it's great to have you here, Sharon. Over to you. You want to use the...
Namaskar. It's an honor to be here with so many great minds. And as my esteemed colleague, Dr. Eckel, said, to the students here, we're very grateful to you. You really are why we do what we do. Sometimes we forget that, but you remind us and you challenge us to be our best selves. I'm going to just quickly focus on 5 points that I think from my decades of experience in India and my work all around the world, that will simply echo and complement what my colleagues have said. The first has been mentioned, but it's worth another mention: paradigm shifts. A paradigm shift is a complete shift in consciousness, in being, in process, and in logics. And so what we need is a paradigm shift. The paradigm that we need to shift from is Western logics, industrialized Western logics that told us that some of us are more valuable than others of us, right? We're all human. But industrial Western thought, what Amartya Sen refers to as the demands of rationality, have told us to separate ourselves from ourselves, ourselves from each other, all of us from our Mother Earth. Oh, further away, thank you. That's a first. And so a paradigm shift really ostensibly means we must see ourselves and the universe anew. So I'll begin with a paradigm shift. And paradigm shift means, quite specifically, and as we speak about education in India, it means a shift in the ways that systems exist. How dominance is conferred on systems, conferred on process, over being conferred on humanity, right? So we've messed up as a universe. We've messed up. We've made the processes and the systems more important than our own humanity. We've messed up so much that we've created logics that call compassion and empathy and emotional intelligence soft skills. These are the hardest skills, right? These are the hard skills. But we've devalued them so much because white, Western, industrialized culture was held up as the axiom of excellence, and everyone has fallen in line. Now, that makes sense. The marketplace creates what we call institutional isomorphism. It means that institutions around the world look to about 5 examples and all follow those 5 examples and then become routinized, roboticized, and they lose their uniqueness. Quite different than Anant, right? Anant is a paradigm changer. And this is what we need. We need people and places that are about people and places, that are about the local populations. So the paradigm shift is the first thing. The second thing is the logics of the paradigm shift. My whole work for the past 35 years has been on leader logics. What are the logics that leaders bring to the policies that they support, to the practices that they reward or punish, right? What are the logics of leaders running institutions? To me, in my life's work, the logic of leaders is where to go, right? We have to help our leaders to understand that the soft skills are the hard skills, that the way we've been taught all over the world to hierarchicalize humanity is wrong, and that we need each other. And so that's the logics part. Logics will change systems when we're able to create processes, and we have vetted processes that people can use based on design thinking to help leaders dislodge sedimented logics that preclude real progress in the paradigm shift to rehumanize ourselves. So my work is on leader and institutional humanization. How do we humanize ourselves? Again, back to Amartya Sen, who says, the demands of rationality have stolen so much from us, but it's our birthright to get it back. But we need each other to do so. So that's my third point, is participatory methods. I watched a wonderful film last evening here at Anant about a participatory response to the crisis in Puerto Rico. And the theme I kept seeing in this film over and over and over again was participatory process, where everyone has a voice, everyone has agency, and everyone is a part of the decision-making body. That is the new model for India. That is the new model for everywhere. The new model is nothing about us without us. That is a motto from the disability rights community in the United States. nothing about us without us. The students need to be a part of decision making. Everyone from every caste, right? We have to be reversing how we have been indoctrinated to devalue each other and ultimately ourselves. My fourth point, once we create these participatory processes in local areas, right, we identify the problems, community members can always identify their own problems, they can always gather representational data across their populations and plow that into the initiatives that they do. That's participatory methods. That is the future. People being a part of their own solutions with the government supporting them. It's the panchayat model, but using a whole different methodology so that it's localized. Which brings me to customized replication. How do you customize and scale to a scale like India or anywhere in the world without losing the humanity that came into the original designs and models? So we have to learn to do this better. And this is, I think, a beginning of that. And finally, I'll return to logics, which undergird everything. And so my work with leaders and organizations around the world is to help them excavate their logics, to understand the systems of knowing that their logics both emerge from and represent, and to help them see, to help each of us, to help myself see my logics enough so that I'm more open to other logics that are disruptive to my own, that contradict my own, and that actually teach me to be better. And I think for all of us, understanding that the logic of being an expert needs to shift to being the logic of being a learner. And so we're all learners in this. My wish for all of you is that in your life you will have the tremendous privilege that I have had of examining yourself deeply. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. There's a lot to take in there, from leadership to logic to purpose to inclusivity, and I'm sure that gives lots of food for thought for the sessions to come. Can I now go to Stavros? Veda, is it okay if you go last? We'll come back to you. Stavros, if you could talk about how you think education is changing and what you would say about reimagining based on all of the great work that WISE has been doing over the years. Yeah. Over to you.
Thank you.
It's working.
It's working, great. Well, it's first of all a privilege to be here with His Excellency the Minister and all the other distinguished panelists. So my organization was tasked about 14 years ago to think about how innovation can play a part in transforming education. And so our tagline is building the future of education through innovation. And so addressing a topic like the future of learning is very apropos to what we do. I always begin remarks on the future with stating the somewhat obvious, which is that the future is by definition uncertain. And therefore, when we think about how we adapt our systems to future-proof them, to use a term that is fashionable, I like to think about principles that we ought to incorporate in thinking about how we structure these systems. And I'll offer three ideas that I think we should incorporate in our deliberations. The first, and I was very encouraged to hear the minister talk about brain development. I've long argued that there isn't enough science going into the practice of teaching and learning. We haven't done enough to understand how the brain learns, when it learns, and what are the best conditions within which teaching and learning can take place. And so I think, as we look ahead to the future of learning, I think it's incumbent upon us to incorporate more and more science and neuroscience in particular into the solutions that we propose. The second, which shouldn't maybe come as a surprise since we're at a design university, is to also think about how do we apply design thinking to how we teach and learn. And by that I mean, how do we create systems that allow for prototyping, that allow for experimentation, that allow, dare I say, for failing, but then can quickly recover and can quickly adapt to changing needs, changing circumstances. And my last point is, and again, I think I'm echoing the minister here a little bit, in being prepared to allow for the existence of multiple pathways to success in teaching and learning. Appreciating that we're not all the same, that we don't all need to aspire to one type of institution or one type of qualification, but creating those multiple pathways and allowing people to self-select and even to move between different pathways at different stages in their life. So just my 3 points for our discussions.
Thank you, Stavros. That actually builds very nicely on some of the points made earlier. Particularly, I love your idea of multiple pathways. We've tried to actually incorporate that a lot into the innovation that we've done at Anant. Veda, you've been building new, a bit like what we are trying to do here, and I think several educational entrepreneurs are also in the audience. But we'd be very curious to hear about your experience. We are all excited about what's happening in Africa, so we always look not just to the West, but also to the experiments going on there. Lots of African students coming to study in India now, which is a new trend. So we'd love to hear, we've heard a lot about the African Leadership University, so over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. I was dreading the heat around this time of the day, but this AC is keeping it really, really cool in this room, so I'm very excited about that. It's been so insightful already being here since morning. We're using very similar language of innovation, whether it's here in the room, in the context of India, or the colleagues that are in the room. But I think context really matters when we're thinking about innovation. And the minister talked about design thinking, and we can't be talking about design thinking unless we really think about the community, the environment, and the individuals who we're trying to impact. So give me a couple of minutes to just share a little bit more about the African context in which we are trying to innovate. Maybe people in the room may not be aware, but Africa is the youngest continent in the world. Has a median age of 19.7, which is even younger than India of comparable size, about 1.3 billion people. It is soon going to be the largest workforce in the entire world. About 1 billion people in Africa will be in the workforce by the year 2035. By the turn of this century, 40% of the entire global population is going to be African, which means almost 1 in 2 people in the entire world is going to be African by the turn of this century. But sadly, in Africa, the gross enrollment ratio that we were talking about earlier is only at 8% when it comes to higher education. So as you can imagine, that's a massive, massive gap for a very young continent. While the youth bulge in Africa could represent an incredible economic opportunity of global proportion, if we don't get education right, we could be looking at a ticking time bomb. So the likes of us are just trying to bring in solutions that we don't think is going to address the entire problem, because that's not possible. We need multiple solutions, but we are hoping that we're able to demonstrate that some things can be done differently. And because contexts matter, you can't always replicate solutions that have worked elsewhere. And I appreciate what you said earlier, Sharon, that we can't afford to replicate models that we borrow from the West. We've built a model. Actually, a bunch of us as the founding team were consultants, so we love building models. And we said if we were to replicate, let's say Harvard University, if we were to build Harvard-sized universities in the exact same model to move the gross enrollment ratio from 8%, at the time we were building the model, which is about 9 years ago, we were looking at India, and we said if we want to move from 8% to 18%, which I think India did in about 15 years, how many Harvard-sized universities would we have to build? And it was coming out to about 285 a year for the next 15 years, which is obviously impossible. If you just look at the ratio of PhDs and faculty to student that Harvard has, we cannot afford that. Harvard's budget annually is probably about the size of my country's GDP, which is Mauritius. We clearly cannot afford that. So it's important for us to think of an education model that is, number one, an education model that serves a purpose. So at the African Leadership University, we tell our students to not declare a major, but to declare a mission. My mission is to serve this purpose. And we actually help them curate their entire learning to serve these challenges and these opportunities that they identify on the continent. We think it's very important for us to teach our students to become not just job seekers, but job creators as well. Because there are just not enough jobs for the number of young people on the African continent. So it is imperative that when we're training people, we're training them not just to acquire skills and competencies, to be sitting and waiting for employers to bring jobs to them, or to wait for government to bring jobs for them, right? Which leads me to my last point, which is one of the things that I hope we're going to talk about today. And I was just chatting with my colleague over there earlier. And it seems that we have similar challenges and opportunities when it comes to how we look at regulation and quality assurance. Too often we have inherited quality assurance frameworks that, again, don't work for us anymore. I have spent way too much time in my very young journey as an education entrepreneur talking to regulators who are asking me or who are telling me that the size of my office is not good enough to be the leader of a school. And I asked the question, why does that matter? Why does the size of my office matter to the delivery of learning and to the delivery of education? So we need to move regulatory frameworks from a place of looking at inputs. Because when you look at it, you look at the rankings, especially in the US, and forgive me my American colleagues, I was educated in the US as well, but I say this from a place of awareness as well. Too often we're looking at ranking universities based on genuinely how wealthy they are. Right? What can they afford to have? What resources they can afford to have? How many faculty? How many buildings? How many this? How many that? How many? But what about the output? What about the outcome? What is the impact you're actually having in the world? Could we look at a regulatory framework that is actually output and outcome focused, that measures the caliber of the learner that comes out, the skills and the competencies that he or she has, the jobs that he or she is creating in the world, the impact that he or she is having on society? What would be the metrics, right, to define such a quality framework if we were to do it, right? These are some of the things that I hope will come up over the next few days. It's such an honor to be here. My name sounds Indian because I have Indian heritage. It is Veda, like the Vedas, but I am proudly African. I was born and raised in Mauritius, but I've looked up to the great country of India because what it has done in the last 30 years is remarkable, and I hope to learn some things here to take back to the continent of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That everything you said resonates so much with what we are trying to do here, and those were almost like somewhat talking to people who are searching for the same answers and are also feeling the same frustrations, but are spot on. I thought what we could go back to is quick comments from our panelists again. Jeff, you did talk about the longevity of the classroom and teacher model. One of the things we face in places like Africa and India is just the impossibility of scaling that in our lifetimes to the numbers that we are talking about. And so how do you solve for that?
And that's where I think technology actually may play a role.
Yeah.
But I was talking to a young student in China just yesterday in an online class, and her research project is looking at the impact of technology on English language learning during the pandemic. And what surprised her was just how variable the quality of the opportunity was.
Right.
And it depended not just on the availability of technology. Technology on its own is not a silver bullet. It depended upon the support that wrapped around the technology. In this particular case, the support from families and parents to support the young people in the use of the technology to actually learn something useful. So I think we have got to look at models which employ technology, but the technology itself is not the solution. It's part of a solution, but we need to think in much broader terms, and to use one of Sharon's expressions, which I will steal immediately, to excavate the logics which we are embedding in our ways of thinking about the use of these technologies.
Exactly.
And that requires what I would describe as being transcendental violence, where we
Yes.
actually need to be very disruptive in terms of thinking about technologies and about how we use. The way we think about technologies is we imagine them as classrooms.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
imagine them as delivery devices. I hear all the time people talking about delivery. Education is not about delivery.
No.
Post office workers deliver parcels. That is not education.
That's right.
That it really is not education. It's not about delivery. So we have to reimagine how we embed technologies in processes and systems.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think technology is a little bit like the printing press.
Yeah.
And we haven't really found how you use the printing press for education yet. We are just replicating the classroom in
That's
the
right.
online environment.
And this thing, okay, this is a digital pencil, but this thing remains one of the most powerful technologies in the world.
Absolutely. Stavros, do you think innovation is really happening? You see so much from the point of view of WISE. What are good examples of innovation?
Well, I mean, can I just
Yeah, sure,
piggyback
please.
on the previous point, and then I'll address the question. I think again, this is where being more scientific in our approach to received wisdoms can help. So, for example, throughout the education systems, quality tends to be associated with a high low student to faculty ratio.
Yeah.
I have seen some evidence that suggests that, at least in a K-12 context, once you get beyond 14 or 15 students in the classroom, it doesn't really matter how many additional, the personalization element goes away. So then why are we wedded to this idea that you can't go beyond 20 or 30, students in a classroom? So again, I think the innovation needs to happen, with an informed scientific basis about what really works and what doesn't, and what do you need to keep of the existing system versus what you can actually significantly disrupt. Now, to answer your question, there are innovations. Of course, there are. The challenge, as I've discovered in 10 years of leading WISE, is that very few of them scale. Scaling is it's been the one thing that we have yet to
That's right.
to solve for in the education
That's right.
space. And I wish I could say, I would have more insight into this, but solving for scaling is what, and I know this is what African Leadership University is trying to do. I know this is what, to a certain extent, you're trying to do here. And of course, the minister is thinking in terms of...
because for us, the challenge of scale at pace.
At pace is...
At pace, exactly.
Is really
At pace.
So I wish I could, shed more light on that, but...
Is the graduate schools of education around the world trying to solve this problem of scale?
Thank you. I was hoping you were going to ask that. Thank you for your point. I think
we all know that scaling is a problem. What's the problem about scaling? One has to inquire. What are the problems with scaling, right? Well, we know context is everything. So scaling creates just in and of itself, you're moving it somewhere else, right? The other thing is about steadiness of resources, right? You have clusters of resources. So once you scale somewhere else, it's a different resource ecosystem. So it's context in terms of culture, people, place. It's also context in terms of socioeconomics. It's context in terms of culture and logics are like this, right? And so I think that the work that we're doing at the Graduate School of Education around specifically a model that I mentioned earlier, customized replication, is precisely to try to address the challenge of all that is lost, like a sieve, when you scale up, right? The relational ecosystem, the resource ecosystem, the way that culture and local cultures instantiate themselves in the thing you are trying to replicate. And so customized replication is a process that's participatory. It means that you're systematically involving communities in the replication of the good thing in their community. That's the only way, from my experience, and I've worked on customized replication all over the world, not at a scale like India, but at very large scales. And the only way we've been successful is to use a customized replication model where it's a very, very deep horizontal train the trainer. And the biggest thing you're training people in is the respect for local people, right? That local knowledges, whether they're highly literate knowledges, low caste knowledges, whatever knowledges they are valuable and we need them. And I think that's the piece of customized replication that meets up with the humility that we all need to have in universalizing opportunity. So customized replication is one piece of it. Another piece of it is when you scale, you have to scale with a rugged attention to context, because context will eat your scaled thing for lunch if you don't account for it properly. And so to me, we spend inordinate amount of time. I'm a methodologist, I'm a qualitative methodologist. We dive into places, we immerse ourselves in those places for months. We're multinational, multilingual teams. We have people who speak the dialects, and we go in, and sometimes we stay there for a year to figure the thing out, because context is so important. Figuring the thing out can only happen through participatory methods where there's representation of all the different strata and range and variation of people within a community. And so this is a global issue. I think we have some models around the world. There's a wonderful model in Nicaragua, for example. It's much smaller scale than India, but there are a number of excellent customized replication models that UPenn has worked on. And India will make us work harder because of your scale. And because there's 29 states and 6 union territories, so we have 35 countries that we're scaling for.
And you're sitting next to the man who's trying to solve this problem. So, sir, if you could,
so maybe we could have lunch.
give you the chance to make some closing comments before I go back to the minister after everything you've heard.
Thank you very much. I would like to focus on what my learned colleague has just now said, that technology is not the only solution for creating a good learning environment. So I want to focus on two aspects here. One, we are talking about future of learning. First of all, we need to understand what learning is. Cognitive science is very clear. If you observe a small kid who is put in a small room with full of toys, the child experiences those toys, tastes, sees, and so on, collects this information, encodes this information, and puts it in the long-term memory, and uses and reuses from the long-term memory, and that's how learning takes place. But then our challenge is how to make our students best learners. Now this is where we can go back to one of the greatest philosophers that India has produced. His name is Adi Shankara. Adi Shankara said, if you want to become a good learner, you need to do 4 things. In Sanskrit he said, Pathanam, Mananam, Chintanam, Sankirtanam. You have to study, you have to remember what you have studied, and you have to critically think about what you have remembered, and then you have to repeat the whole process. And that is how a person will become good learner. Now, the role of a teacher is not to teach, but to create an ecosystem both inside and outside the classroom, where the students are constantly involved in these 4 processes. And that is where the idea of holistic education comes. And again, we can go back to a shloka from Mahabharata, which tells us what is holistic education. It says, 1/4 of education to the student comes from the teacher, 1/4 of education comes from the critical thinking of the student, 1/4 of education comes from the peer learning by working with each other, with their own peers, and 1/4 of education comes from their own experience. And this is what is holistic education. I think whatever models we use, whatever technological solutions we may invent, ultimately our students can become creative and innovative only if we create an ecosystem where they become good learners, and then they are imparted with holistic education. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Can I ask you, sir, to please close this discussion for us with any thoughts that you may have? Should be working, sir. Give them a minute to. Can you?
Thank you, Pramod ji. Thank you to the all panelists. They all have contributed and in a way set the tone of the 3-day workshop. If I summarize one sentence of each panelist, education institution cannot be post office. When talking about future of learning, what are you planning? What we all are planning? When you are creating an institution, building up an institution, that doesn't mean some millions of square feet of the building, some faculty member, a bunch of students. Beyond that, some philosophy is there. I think that is the need of the hour. And today, one of the important recommendation, important pointers of this deliberation is the philosophy of education. Number 2, the scalability of a new thing. Panelists are from the developed country. Panelists are from emerging economic like us, Africa and India. And India has little bit being an old civilization, we have our own repository of knowledge and learning process. If we put up all the 3 practices a few centuries from the civilizational journey map, important things after philosophy, how do you replicate that? What is the scalability? Is technology is the answer, or something beyond lies there? These are the one of the pointers of this panel discussion. And finally, you have to recognize the aspiration of new generation. I am totally agreeing with Mr. Ved. Putting together India and Africa, both the subcontinent, will be more than 2/3 of the global population by next few years. And our problem, our lifestyle, our aspiration are similar. At one point of time in India, today also, why do we are into education? Because we have to get into economic empowerment. How do you do that? Through job. Now there is an emerging mindset is coming up, innovation, technology, to fulfill the aspiration. The aspiration of the global scenario is we have to create, not job creator. I am little bit amending the word of my friend Ved. We have to create wealth creator. Africa and India has abundance of wealth. through education, through knowledge, how to monetize that wealth, monetize that opportunity to wealth not only for individual comfort, wealth for societal development. This is the philosophy of education. This is, I think, I am so happy, and finally our UGC chairman has cited the example of Adi Guru Shankaracharya. This is the basic philosophy of education, to do the right thing repeatedly. That is the message of Indian civilization on education. And Ananta, like its name, Ananta means it's infinity. Its limit is up to sky, beyond that. And today I am thrilled to be part of this important global deliberation, future of learning. Samagra Ananta, in a holistic way, will go up to infinity, will create global citizenship. Congratulations again to the organizer of this deliberation. Thank you.
I think Samagra Ananta is all we need to take away from this session. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating. Please don't get up yet. We'll close the session and then we can all go. But thank you very much for your valuable contributions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pramath, for moderating this very interesting discussion around the future of learning. Before we close the event, I would request Dr. Raghu Krishnamurthy to kindly come on the stage and deliver the customary vote of thanks.
So it's with great honor and privilege on behalf of ChatGPT, I'm just kidding, on behalf of Anant University and the Graduate School of Education from the University of Pennsylvania, that I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Honorable Minister for igniting the lamp of future of learning. So thank you for doing that, and a warm round of applause for the Minister. Thank you. The future of learning demands new perspectives, new partnerships, and new ways of thinking to manage the paradigm shifts that we spoke about this morning. And clearly, based on what we heard, both from the Minister and from the Chairman of UGC, Mr. Jagadesh Kumar, it's obvious that the best place to host this deliberation is India. With the kind of innovation and thought that's going into the future of learning, this is obviously the place for us to congregate and deliberate about this very important topic. So thank you for illuminating to all of us from outside the country about the kind of thinking that's going into the education sector in India. A warm round of applause to India. Thirdly, the famous anthropologist Margaret Mead once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And this group, the 27 of us, is precisely that small group, united by a passion for transformation in education and learning and a restless desire for positive progress. Through this highly anticipated meeting, and we saw some perspective shared this afternoon through the panel discussion, we hopefully will chart a roadmap for the future of learning, and we will do so with an appreciation for the context and a commitment for equality and innovation, because as Mahatma Gandhi once said, the future depends on what we do today, at present. I will be remiss if I did not thank Mr. Ajay Piramal, Mr. Pramod Sinha, and Dr. Anunaya Chaube for actually conceiving this collaborative and inviting UPenn to be a part of it. We are indeed very grateful and honored to be part of this equation, because I think this is the start of a massive transformation that's possible in the world. The next 3 days are just the beginning of what promises to be a remarkable journey over the next few years, where education becomes accessible, transformative, and empowering. we are up to the challenge. And thanks for all the provocations this morning. Thank you very, very much once again. With that, we will go for the media session. Thank you.
I'd request everybody in the audience to kindly remain seated as our dignitaries proceed for the next session.